just recently we uploaded a video which showed how I used the Data Hub to make attacking tweaks. In this video we're going to look at defending, and then we are going to use the collected data from both attacking and defending to make some tweaks to the team instructions. Let's go and kick some balls. Hello and welcome back to FM with Old Man Phil, and in part 2 of the Data Hub we are going to be looking at defending and how we can tweak individual instructions based on the data that we find there, and also we are going to be looking at how we can then combine that with the attacking data that we used in the last episode in order to make some team instructions to our tactic. And just before we get onto that, if you are brand new to the channel and you like FM content and you love to see people suffer playing the game, then you're probably in the right place. So why not hit that subscribe button, click the bell, and you'll be updated when we upload future videos. And while you're there clicking around, why not hit the like button, because likes and comments are what help drive the YouTube algorithm to push the video to people who've not yet seen anything from our channel. And so for defending now, let's go straight to the Data Hub. And so basically what I've done is exactly the same as I did for the attacking. And as you can see, I've taken out all the attacking data and I've put in the defending data instead. And just as before, I've gone to the menu, and basically what I've done is I've asked for, let's go to the scatter graph, and I've asked for data on attacking efficiency. No, I don't want that. Passing dynamics. We're going to ask for data on goal output, because this will give us goals conceded as well. So I'm then going to click that box, and that will add it to the data that I've already put on the screen. If I want to remove data, I just simply uncheck the box and it will disappear. But for now, we'll keep that clicked on because I want it on my screen in order to analyze the team data for defending. And the first thing that I'm going to look at is team defending and a general overview of how we defend. And actually, you can see we defend very well. And you can see that it says we are performing above average in defensive statistics. In particular, we win possession a lot more than average in our own third, and we keep a lot more clean sheets than the average team. We also restrict the final third passes against us much more than the average. The rest of it seems to be average, except that we make more fouls per game than average, and that's not a particularly good statistic and something that we need to be aware of. If we look at the team defending in general, you can see here that we make fewer blocks than the average team, but we make more clearances than the average team. What we need to do is somehow find a way to make more blocks when the opposition are shooting towards our goal. And our pressing intensity, as you can say, it demands further attention. We do allow a high number of opposition passes per defensive action. In other words, we are not pressing them enough. We are allowing them too much space, really, in order to play before we will engage the opposition. We keep a higher line than average defensive line, and so it's something also that we need to be aware of. Our aerial ability at the back is not particularly good. We head the ball more than the average team, but it's not very accurate when we're heading out from the back. And our tackling, well, we're not really very good at tackling. We tackle more than the average team, but we also, remember, give away a lot of fouls, and we win the ball from our tackles at a worse rate than the average team, and that's probably linked to the fact that we foul a lot. And then our defensive efficiency, we face more shots per game than the average team. However, we concede fewer goals than would be expected from the number of shots that we face. So what we really need to do is to limit the amount of shots that we're facing. Or the other way to look at it would be to block more shots, because if you remember, the amount of blocks that we make is not that great. And in terms of our goal output, we're not really interested in how we are performing in an attacking sense, but when we look at it in terms of goals we are conceding, we concede more total good chances than the average team. And so I guess in some ways we are allowing teams much more opportunity to take shots on our goal. So let's stay with the team data and we'll go and have a look at the analyst report. And this time we're going to click on conceding. And you can see that we concede a lot of goals from the middle of the penalty area. Too many from the 6-yard box and 10 from the penalty spot. Not so many from outside the box. Only 4 in the last 30 matches have been scored from outside the box. So that's a pretty good record. Placed shots 18 and powerful shots only 5. Headers only 9. And if we look at the assists from headers, we can see that a lot of assists have come from out wide. A lot of assists have come from just outside the penalty area. Headers may be an issue in terms of goals that we are conceding. In terms of the positions that we concede from, attacking midfield left, attacking midfield right, and striker are the issues that we probably need to look at a little bit more. And in terms of goals conceded and timing of goals conceded, you can see that as the game progresses, we tend to concede more goals. We tend to start well, defending-wise, but as the game progresses, we tend to concede a lot more. And that is also something that we need to bear in mind. So now let's go and try and make some sense with this, and we'll have a look at the player data. We're going to look at the goalkeeper to begin with, and we're going to be looking at how our goalkeeper is performing. Well, he's performing quite well. He's making a higher number of saves per 90 minutes. His shot stopping is very, very good. And he makes an excellent ratio of saves compared to the average. So in terms of shot stopping, he's not doing a bad job. In terms of his passing, you can see that it's below average. We attempts fewer passes per 90 minutes than average and completes fewer passes than average by ratio. So in terms of his passing, he's not particularly good in terms of pass completion. And in fact, he only has a pass completion of 67 from a total of 24 passes attempted per 90 minutes. So he's not particularly efficient when it comes to passing, something to bear in mind. And finally, looking at the advanced goalkeeping statistics, you can see prevents a lot more expected goals than average and makes an excellent ratio of saves. So all that we really need to be concerned about when it comes to our goalkeeper is his passing ability. When we look at the defenders, I've got 4 boxes loaded up here. I'm going to look at the aerial first for the defenders, and Atom stands out. And he is probably the best that I have in terms of aerial ability. The next one in line is Scott McKenna and Sposili and Sia. They are all around about average in terms of their heading ability, in terms of their amount of headers and how good and how strong those headers are. The stronger the header, the better the clearance. And so Atom, as a young 22-year-old, probably needs to be starting more. As we come to the end of the season, he needs to be tried now and tested out for next season. Any one of the other 3 could partner him in the defence. They're all about the same in terms of aerial ability. Looking at our tackling stats, we attempt fewer tackles per 90 minutes than average. We need to be tackling probably a little bit more. We win fewer tackles than average also by ratio. Scott McKenna stands out in this area because he's making very few tackles. His tackle win ratio is only 63% and he's only actually attempting to make 2 tackles per game. That's not enough for a central defender. Atom once again seems to be the standout defender when it comes to tackling. And looking at the physical output of the defenders, you'd expect that the wingbacks would be putting in more effort into the game. The central defenders are going to be a little more sedentary and they're not exactly expending a lot of energy. But those that do, Max Fingraf, left back, is expending a lot of energy. And also Josh Tyman is putting in a very, very good physical performance. The right backs, Juan Lu and Garosabel, are not as effective in terms of sprints and high distance covered, but they are still in the right section of the data chart. And so finally coming to our midfield defending for midfielders is pretty shocking. We make fewer blocks per 90 minutes than average, and that says something about where we are placing our lines. We make a high number of clearances per 90 minutes, and so it's really about blocks. We need to sort out how many blocks we are getting and increase the number of blocks that we are managing to make. And finally, the physical output of the midfielders. You can see there's a couple of players who don't put in a lot of effort. But Cameron Humphreys, Ahmed Diallo and Alex Scott tend to be the standout players in terms of physical output. But it's generally fairly average in terms of the physical output that we are putting into each game. But there's one more thing that I need to look at when it comes to team defending before we move on to making our little tweaks. I'm going to look at our defending for the last 5 matches. And in particular, I'm going to be looking at the positives and negatives. There's a lot more negatives than there are positives. And in terms of defending, I'm looking at opposition long-range shots. And in the last 5 games, we have conceded no goals from the 28 shots that have been attempted from outside the penalty area. So in terms of defending long shots, we're doing particularly well. And in terms of defending on the negative side, we do score a lot of goals from inside the 6-yard box. And it is important possibly then that we look at going into a low block, getting more bodies behind the ball. Maybe then that will help us in terms of increasing the amount of blocks that we are producing. Also, in terms of opposition touches to shots conversion, we are allowing the opposition to have a good number of shots to touches ratio in our penalty area. That probably means that I'm going to have to play in a low block with a higher line. I just don't want too many opportunities being given away in the penalty area. And secondly, the opposition touches to shots conversion. We are allowing the opposition to have a good shots to touches ratio in our penalty area. And we need to find a way to reduce this. And so we'll be looking at that in the team instructions and also in the individual instructions. We also need to be aware of where the opposition in the last 5 matches are getting into our final third. And 112 of 261 have come from central areas of the pitch. And that might be because we are quite light in midfield and we are allowing the central midfielders too much time and space to play balls into the final third. And you can see a lot of these are going out wide. A number of these passes are going out to the wingers. Very, very few of them are going out straight up centrally. And so that is something that also needs consideration. Okay, now let's go along to the tactic. And knowing what we know now, we can make some individual adjustments. And for example, we have traditionally kept our wing backs on close down less. I now want them to actually close down a little bit more, so I'm going to take that off them. And both of them traditionally were closing down less on the wingers. Now we are going to take that away. I want them pressing more. Part of our problem is the fact that we are not making enough blocks. Our pressing intensity is not good enough, and perhaps we need to be pressing the teams much more than we actually are. I'm not talking about counter press, I'm talking about trigger press when players get the ball and it looks like there might be an error about to occur. Perhaps we're not closing down as much as we should be. I do have a central defender on defend here who also will have a lot of space in front of him. So what I'm going to ask him to do is trigger press more often. And that will mean that this space will be covered a little bit better. We also then have this central defender on a cover duty. And what I'm going to do with him is tell him to close down less. Well, that will mean that he can focus on his cover duty. He has cover in front of him, so hopefully he can just then concentrate on what he's doing at the back. In terms of my goalkeeper, I'm really not quite sure what to do with him. I think because his passing is pretty poor, he is on take more risks. I want to take that away from him. So I'm just going to make him a goalkeeper on defend, and now I can tell him to take fewer risks, do shorter passing, and don't do anything silly. And hopefully now his passing will improve. In terms of my DLP, I do want him to be closing down more, so I'm going to ask him to close down spaces here a lot more. Fernandez at centre mid and attack, I'm not going to be doing anything with him, and the wingers and the strikers, I'm not actually going to be asking them to close down any more than they would normally. I'm focusing on my defenders here, and hopefully now we are going to create more blocks by increasing the individual trigger pressing and also decreasing where necessary. In transition, we're not going to counter-attack anymore. I don't think we are good enough. We don't have the pace or the off-the-ball ability to counter-attack. We're just going to leave this off. We're not going to hold shape and limit the amount of opportunities that we get. We're just not going to counter-attack every time we get the ball. And perhaps we're going to limit the amount of times that we do go off bombing up the pitch. We're going to be a bit more organised in terms of shape when we attack. And in terms of counter-pressing, we definitely are not good enough to be counter-pressing, and we're not going to be regrouping either. We're just going to have a balance between counter-press and regroup. We're just going to take fewer risks. This does mean that we're going to create fewer opportunities, but I do believe that we are clinical in front of goal, and that should create a balance between attack and defence. Out of possession is going to be an issue. My assistant has advised that we go into a low block. I also want to play with a higher line, as we explained before, and that will hopefully keep people away from our 6-yard box. We also have a great deal of players now behind the ball, and that's going to hopefully increase the defensive ability that we have. In terms of the trigger press, I'm going to push that up much more often, but I'm going to take off prevent short goalkeeper distribution. And whilst I'm not counter-pressing, I do want to engage their players, so by upping the trigger press to much more often, it does mean then we are going to engage the opposition a lot more. And then in terms of our passing, we're not the greatest passing team in the world, so I'm just going to set it to standard. I'm going to set it to a standard passing directness. And basically what that means is our passing directness will be dictated by the mentality. So if I go to defensive, for example, and now go to our passing, it's slightly more direct with a slightly lower tempo. If I go to positive, then our passing becomes slightly shorter with a slightly higher mentality. And if I go to attacking, then our passing becomes standard directness with a slightly higher tempo. So by keeping it on standard, what it basically means is that when I alter the mentality, the passing directness and tempo is also going to alter with it. But at the moment, I'm just going to keep everything nicely balanced in terms of our passing and not try to do anything too outrageous. We're not good enough to be playing in a controlled possession way, and we're not good enough to pass with a really high tempo. And so we're going to just keep everything balanced, and we're not going to do too much in terms of changing our passing directness. Most of the adjustments that we've made have been to do with blocks, and now we need to look at players tackling. And if you remember, we give away a great deal of fouls. And so anyone who has tackle harder on there, we're going to remove that because I don't think that that is absolutely necessary. And I think it's creating our poor statistics when it comes to tackling. I have taken most of these off. We did have a number of players in midfield and defence who were tackling harder. I've taken those off already. And so I think that should help in terms of our tackling and in terms of the amount of times that we win the ball. And so that's it for our look at the data hub in terms of defending and making the adjustments to our tactic. I hope you found these 2 videos informative. It's really not that difficult to maneuver in the data hub. It's really just about organizing. What do I want to look at? Do I want to look at defending or do I want to look at my attacking? And then just ask for the particular things that you want to look at. And so that's it for this video. If you are brand new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, click the bell, and you'll be updated when we upload future videos. And while you're there, clicking around, hit that like button, because likes and comments are what drive the YouTube algorithm to push the video to people who've not yet seen any videos from the channel. And that's it from me for this time. All that remains to be said now. Stay safe. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.